Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Daniel Tolson live stream. Now, on today's topic, we're going to be talking about disappointment. Now, disappointment, I was doing some Google searching on this today, and I typed in disappointment into Mr. Google, and it came up with 273 million results for the word disappointment. So I think there's something happening in our lives. I think there's a lot of people, including myself, who've experienced a lot of disappointment, and they're also looking for an answer to solve this life's problem. So what I want you to do now, say hello, type in hello in the chat box below. Let me know if you're watching live or if you're watching on the replay. So say hello. Now, I've experienced a lot of disappointment over the years. As a former competitive athlete, I would set goals. I would visualize myself winning competitions only to go out there and crash and burn and wipe out in the first 10 seconds. And I'll tell you what, after you've built yourself up, after you've believed and convinced yourself that you're going to win, you crash and you burn. And it's disappointing. Now, as a former competitive athlete, what used to happen was you would train 99% of the time you were in training. 99% of the time you'd convince yourself that you were going to win, and then all of a sudden you crash and burn. So Letitia, my dear cousin, good afternoon. Good to see you there. Sylvester, great to see you there, my friend. Thanks for joining me live. And Claire, thanks for joining me live also. So I've had a lot of disappointments in sports. I've also had a lot of disappointments in my careers. I remember I went and lived in Dubai. I got a job, very good job, and I was coaching wakeboarding. I was out on the Gulf there. It was 55 degrees during the day, but I loved the job. And I thought it was going to last forever, but it didn't. And when it came to an end, I had a feeling of disappointment because I felt that I could have done so much more. I thought there was so much more to give, so much more to do, so much more to become. And all of a sudden, a experience that I thought was going to last a long time only lasted a very short period of time. I also moved to Dubai, and I'd lived there and I loved the place. When I moved to Dubai, I got there in 2007. I said to myself, this place feels like home. And I loved it. And I thought that was going to be my home for the rest of my life. But what happened a couple of months later, I'm coming back to Australia. Now, I got another opportunity. I went back to Dubai. I rented a house. I bought my furniture and I was ready to move in. And I experienced disappointment again because the job that I was doing just didn't suit my personality. What I signed up for was not what I got. So Claire, disappointment hurts, but it's not about how hard you fall. It's how quickly you get back up. Words of Rocky. Words of a fighter. I love that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining. If you've experienced disappointment, let me know because I'm feeling alone in my disappointment. If you've experienced disappointment, let me know that you've experienced disappointment. And I'd love to hear about some disappointment that you've gone through because, in my opinion, this is not a conversation that most families have around the dinner table. In business, we're telling everybody things are good, things are great, we're on the up and up, never making more money, couldn't have made more sales, couldn't have been a better year. But in the reality, internally, we could be feeling very disappointing. So when I work with my clients, business people come to me because they want more success. But in order for them to have more success, they've got to overcome the emotional hurt, the emotional pain of those disappointments. And you know what it feels like. You might have set yourself a big goal. You might have thrown yourself in there and acquired all the new knowledge and invested thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours of time into learning and acquiring knowledge. You then go out and you refine the skills. You practice, you rehearse, you get feedback. You work with mentors, you work with coaches, you develop your attitude. You start to approach things and you're thinking you're just about to get there, and then everything falls over. And then it falls over and there's no second opportunity. There's no another opportunity to pick yourself up and go again. And in that moment, it's like a glass shattering on the floor. All of your dreams are shattered. All of your hopes, they're just shattered out in front of you because you were going so hard for this, but then there was a big disappointment and it hurts emotionally. One of my clients the other day, he was in a relationship. He was looking forward to the future, but it didn't work out as he expected. And he said he carried this emotional pain in his heart. He said he could feel the pain in his heart from that relationship. So, what about you? If you're joining us live on the live stream today, say hello. Let me know where you're joining me from. Say hello. If you're joining us on the replay, hashtag replay, let me know that you're joining us. And of course, I want to hear about some disappointing stories that you've had because I'm about to share mine also. So, on my Google search, 273 million results for the search word disappointment. So, it's a hot topic. Don't hide away. And what I also found was there was stories across the internet, stories of books, of entrepreneurs, business people feeling disappointment, all the way to I was watching a video of Barack Obama feeling disappointment as the president of the United States of America. And all of us have our own personal disappointing stories. So what I'm seeing out there in the business world is the first thing that I see is that a lot of business people and professionals have a feeling of unfulfilled potential. They feel unfulfilled because they've set goals and they haven't achieved them. They've set sales targets for themselves and they haven't achieved them. Business owners have set growth targets for their businesses and they haven't achieved them. When I was in real estate, there was customer retention targets and people didn't meet them. And there was this feeling of disappointment. You start out strong, the energy is high, you believe you're invincible, and you want to win. And what happens, you go out and you face reality and you have failure after failure after failure. You have setback after setback after setback. And then what happens is you start to experience that disappointment. Now, when I was in real estate, I had this feeling and I was sold the dream. Daniel, come along. You're going to do real estate. You're going to be invincible. You're going to make all these sales. And you sold this dream. Now, I'm not saying that the dream is not a reality. The dream's a possibility. But nobody ever tells you about the disappointments along the way. Nobody talks about the failures that you're going to have along the way. So you enter these things with so many, there's so many false perceptions. Like today I was looking at a program the other day and it was about coaches. Hey, click this button and have yourself a six-figure business. If you don't want a six-figure business, click this button, join this button, you'll have a seven-figure coaching business. And it's all rosy, but nobody's talking about the pain and suffering along the way. So here's my dear cousin, Letitia. I find expectations can be disappointed when not based on reality and experience. This is the exact same words that I was using with my coach the other day. I said to her, I have disappointment, and it's because these goals that I've set for myself have no basis in reality. I said, it's not that they don't have any basis in reality, it's the time frames that I've put around them. Now, a holiday pamphlet that creates big expectations, the desire for a relationship that's based on some dream, unfulfilled expectations. Letitia, there's a great book that I read many years ago, and my friend wrote the book, and he was talking about unfulfilled expectations. And 84% of the adult population have a feeling of unfulfilled potential. And what happens is they set these standards up here and they never get there. There's one thing that I was learning about myself in emotional intelligence is that I often have a feeling of unfulfilled potential because what happens is I set a goal too high too soon at the start, and I have a feeling of unfulfilled potential along the way. So I set the goal. The reality is here, the benchmarks here, I jump over it, but instead of celebrating the success here, I beat myself up for the difference. And this is something that I've become aware of over the years, that instead of celebrating the success and how much further ahead that I've got, I'll beat myself up for that gap. And it's possible and it's realistic, but just not now. And I get that feeling of unfulfilled potential, and I don't fulfill my own expectations. Something that I've had to work on because I want to be a success, but you've got to remove these obstacles along the way. Great example. Chris Hugh, welcome. Thanks for joining us from Malaysia. Claire, thanks for joining us. When COVID came in March, my business collapsed. Face-to-face meetings. Everything I worked for was now not viable. I felt sick and frightened and crushed, and my heart hurt. I redesigned my business model in 72 hours and immediately took my business online. We have grown 4 times bigger in 6 months than previously in 4 years. Well, Claire, Congratulations, and we're going to give you a big round of applause there. Well done. See, this is resilience. This is bouncing back. So business people, you got to be mindful. What sales targets are you setting? Do they have a basis in reality right now? What about your growth targets? Are you setting yourself up for a perceived failure by not studying your marketplace? What about your customer retention targets? Are they too high too soon? We've got to start to think about this. One of the other things I see in the business world is a lack of reciprocity. What is it? It's a lack of reciprocity. Now, if you're a business owner, if you've been in a relationship, you will know what I'm talking about, Claire. It's always a pleasure. So a lack of reciprocity. What we've learned is that if you do nice things for other people will do nice things for you. Have you been told that? You might have read it in the Bible. Do unto others as you want others to do unto you. So we live by this motto when we go out and we serve people. We overserve our customers. We over-deliver to our customers. And what ends up happening? They end up leaving you for a lower price. Somebody opens a business across the street. Their price is 30 cents lower, and they cross the street to save 30 cents. That person's not going to care for them like you are. That person is not going to personalize the experience to make it a wonderful experience from them. But that client can save 30 cents. And see, what happens is we've been told about this law of reciprocity. Do nice things for people, and people will do nice things to you. Put good things out there in the world, you'll get nice things back. So we overserve and we over-deliver. And then the customer leaves you for a 30-cent variation. And what happens is you feel disappointment and you feel hurt. For some people, they say, Daniel, it's like all of my motivation has disappeared. Are you with me on this? If you've felt disappointment, give me a little wave in the chat box below. Let me know that you've experienced some of these things, because this is quite common for business people today. So reciprocity. Secondly, maybe you've been in network marketing like Claire. Maybe you've had your own business. And what happens is you start to train people. You start to invest your time into people. They ring up at all crazy hours and you give them your time. You sacrifice time with your family. You sacrifice time for your health to help other people. You sacrifice your emotions. You listen to them. You counsel them. You become an emotional first aid station, and you're helping these people because you know that if you put time and effort into them, you're going to be able to receive it back. And then eventually what happens is they go and join another business. After you've brought them up to speed, after you've given them all of your trade secrets, they leave you and go and work with somebody else. Have you had these experiences? Business people are very frustrated around the world because of this. What about mentoring staff? I heard this recently. A client was telling me, Daniel, I mentored one of my staff. I gave him all of my trade secrets. And then once he knew all of my trade secrets, he up and left me. And he started a business right across the road, and he stole all of my customers. And I taught him everything he knew. And that was the reciprocity that I got. And if you're in business, if you've been in a relationship, if you've been in a family, you'll experience all of this. Now, I remember my brother and we started a business called Liquid Militia. It was a beautiful business. It was one of the top clothing companies in the country for wakeboarding. We would manufacture and design our own clothing. We would wear our own clothing. We'd take it to events all around the country, around the world, and people loved the brand. And so we had to grow the business. And to grow the business, we had to expand our footprint. So what we would do, we would sponsor team riders. And when we sponsored these team riders, we gave them opportunities that nobody gave us. And my brother and I would say, we're going to give these people opportunities that nobody ever gave us. We're going to make it easy for them to succeed. So we gave them more clothing than everybody else. We took them out riding. We paid for the fuel and the food and the boat and the transport and the accommodation. We would bring out our uncle. He'd bring out his helicopter and we'd film them, and then we'd put them in our movie. And I remember doing this specifically for one rider. We got them media. We put them in all these different places. And then the day we launched the movie, they left the team. We did all of that, and then they left the team. And it was such a disappointing feeling for me and my brother. Now, we wanted our team to become successful and we thought they'd repay us. But what we learned, some did and some didn't. And the ones who didn't, we felt an emotional pain. And it was very hurtful because we'd put so much in and we thought we we're going to get it back out. So, what did we have to do? Could we get angry? Well, we couldn't get angry because we know that once a better opportunity comes along, you got to take these things. You got to take these opportunities. And we saw this opportunity that our other rider got, but it just shocked us because we hadn't prepared for it. That was all it was. We were shocked because we hadn't prepared for it. In our model of the world, they were going to stick around, but there was a better offer and they had to move on. So we had to learn from this disappointment. So what did we have to do? Did we get angry about it? Did we get upset about it? Did we wallow about it? Yeah, we did. We did for 48 hours, for 72 hours. But then we realized that we just had to get on with our life and we had to keep doing good things. We made a decision that we were not going to change because of somebody else's behavior. So what did we do? We kept giving our riders more opportunities, but we also knew that one day they were going to leave. And when they left, it was okay, and we wished them well on the journey. So, Batira, thanks for joining us. Good to see you there. And Stephen, lower our expectation. The focus should be on the journey, not the destination. We learn something not because we are successful, but both success and failure. The success will be our plus point. Very well said, my friend. I love that. Now, another area of disappointment for business people and serious professionals is that they have hopes and dreams that are not realized. They start their business and they dream of owning $1 million business. They set big goals. They set objectives. They spend time putting strategies into place on how to achieve those goals. They put plans of actions in place for themselves and others. And then they go out and they take action. And all of a sudden, the plans don't work. The strategies don't work. They don't achieve the objectives and they never hit the goal. And they're ultimately disappointed because they put so much investment of time, emotion, and money into the preparation. I've seen other people. They have hopes and dreams of their children taking over the family business. They build this monster business. They build this business that's going to feed the family for 4 generations and beyond. And their legacy becomes their business. And then their children say, Mum, Dad, hey, that was your dream. We don't want a piece of this. It's a death sentence. We want out. Now, the mother and the father, they've been building these monster businesses. We're going to build this generational business and it's going to feed the family for life. And it's also their legacy. And then no one wants to take it on. And I hear a lot of business people experiencing disappointment because the business had been so good to them and their families, and they thought they were doing this for the children. And when the children didn't want to take it over, they felt disappointment. Now, our family, we had a pawn shop. We had a business called Lombard Loans, and we're buying and selling secondhand goods. Now, my parents never wanted us to have the curse of taking that business over. My parents started the business. They started the business for themselves, and when it got to the end of the time that they wanted to run it, they asked my brother and I, would you like to take over the business? We both said no. And so for our family, Mum and Dad understood that we weren't going to take over the business. The business wasn't going to help us unlock our full potential and become the men we were destined to be. So you got to factor these things in. Are you going to build your business in the hope that your children are going to take it over? Because if you are, maybe that just sets you up for that feeling of disappointment. Why don't you set it up with the option of your children being able to take it over if they want? Some people dream of being a CEO. They have this dream of running this business, building a behemoth, and then being able to sit on a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean and have people run the business for them. All of a sudden, they realize that the business is so big and so valuable that they all of a sudden lose trust in the people. And they have this disappointment because the dream was to be the CEO. The dream was to sit on the office and have like a glass ceiling looking down on everybody and just do the observations and having everybody else do the business. And when the business doesn't turn out like that, it can also be very disappointing. So ladies and gentlemen, are you still with me? Are you joining me now on the live, or are you joining me on the replay? What I'd like to hear is, have you ever set a goal? My question for you is, have you set a goal and not achieved it? When you didn't achieve the goal, did you have a sense of disappointment? And what was your next action? Did you give up the goal? Did you give up on the goal? Or did you change your strategy and find a new way to approach the goal? Because I'll tell you what, I've done both. I've set goals because I thought it was the right goal for me. As I went on the journey, like Stephen said, I was going on the journey and the journey was not enjoyable. And I thought if I just got to the end of the journey and got the goal, I'd feel happy. But I realized that the journey was very painful. And at times I've stopped and said, this is not the right goal for me. This is not the right direction. So I turned around and went back. Now, there's an old saying in Turkey, and it says, it doesn't matter how far you've gone down the wrong road, stop and turn back. It's a beautiful saying. The Turks, they say, it doesn't matter how far you've gone down the wrong path, turn around and go back. So what I've learned is that if you've set a goal and you're moving towards that goal and you lose your joy, you lose your energy, you're not having fun along the way, it's causing you more pain than pleasure, you've probably set the wrong goal for you. So sometimes it's okay to turn around and go back. So you're on the way to your goal. There's going to be a lot of obstacles. So I want you to imagine here you are at the start of your journey, and over there is your goal. Now, between you and your goal is a series of obstacles and constraints. And for you to be able to get from your goal, from where you are today to your goal, you've got to overcome these obstacles. But you should be able to overcome these obstacles and still enjoy what you're doing. You should be able to overcome these obstacles and have a learning experience, having fun, challenging yourself, learning about yourself, learning when to speed up, when to slow down, when to change directions, when to change a plan, go from plan B to plan C to plan D. This should still be fun on the journey. But if you're not having fun on the journey, maybe the destination where you're trying to go to is not the right place for you. Claire, brilliant. Live, thank you. Sorry, client call, got to go. You got to make money, girl. Go do it. Come back on the replay, and much love to you from here in Taiwan. So you got to think about the destination. There's going to be a series of obstacles along the way. And if you really like the goal and you're happy with it, you should be happy along the way, and you should be excited about overcoming those obstacles. So the third one was hopes and dreams not realized. The fourth thing that I see is a lot of opportunities missed. And this was a big one for me. So I'm going to share a picture with you on the screen now. And hey, let me know if this has happened to you before. I started a new life. I left Australia and I went to Dubai and I started working with Emirates Airline. I got this wonderful job and I started to have career progression. I could start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I worked my way from economy class to business class. Once I got to business class, I became a senior flight steward. And as part of my role as a senior flight steward, I was able to co-lead a team of 17,000 cabin crew. And it was a wonderful career. On a Monday, I would hop on a flight early Monday morning and would fly from Dubai to London. And so I'd get to London and I'd have lunch in London. The next day would fly back to Dubai and I could go back to the beach, do a little bit of wakeboarding. On the Thursday, would leave early morning and would fly to New York. Would get to New York and I'd get to have pancakes in New York City. Would fly back a couple of days later, end up in Dubai, take another flight, end up over in Bangkok and get a massage. And it was wonderful. And so I had this lifestyle and I had these dreams of traveling around the world for the next 10, 20 years, leading a big team, working with many different customers, having leadership opportunities, coaching opportunities. And I loved that. And then unfortunately, the dream came to an end. And so there I am right in the middle. This is one of the teams that I was leading and I was a senior flight steward. And I had this ability to fly around the world. And you can see how happy I was. There I was, totally happy, loving it. But the dream came to an end. And when the dream came to an end, there was a lot of disappointment. There was a lot of disappointment because there was so many opportunities that I missed out. There was places that I wanted to go. See, with Emirates Airline, we had more than 130 destinations that we could travel to around the world. Daniel Spear, great to see you there from Melbourne. We had 130 destinations that we could travel to around the world. And I would imagine myself going to all of these destinations, meeting all of these wonderful people, taking photos, making videos. And it all came to an end. And I had this feeling of disappointment because I had all of these dreams, I had all of these visions, and then it stopped too soon. So what happened? Once I finished my career here, I moved back to Taiwan. And for the following 6 months, instead of focusing on my business, all I focused on was what I missed out on. I focused on what I missed out on. I focused on all of those dreams that were shattered. I missed out and focused on all those goals that I hadn't achieved. And all of a sudden, I found myself living in the past. I started to live in the past. I could not enjoy the moment because I was too busy living in the past and thinking about what I didn't have. And I felt after about 6 months, I felt very depressed. I felt very anxious. And I went down to the doctor and I said, I think I have a lung problem. This was well before COVID-19. This was back in 2013. I said, I think I've got a lung problem. I can't breathe. So he said, well, you better go to the hospital. I went to the hospital. They put the heart monitor on. The heart was fine. They took x-rays of my chest. The x-rays were fine. And they said, Daniel, it's all in your mind. Relax. So I went back home. I couldn't breathe properly, tight chest, thought I had asthma. And I thought, well, I better go see the psychologist. I went and saw the psychologist and she said, Daniel, you're depressed. And I thought, well, I know why, because I keep living in the past. Batira. Hi, Daniel. I was crew also. You were an excellent supervisor. Now I was made redundant and frustration is high. A new career is so challenging. Willing to open my business, but afraid of failure and losses. Well, what you can see here, this was my last flight, Batira. And what I thought was going to be a very smooth transition was a nightmare. When I left this role, nobody coached me. Nobody prepared me to transition. See, I was an expatriate. I had set myself up in a new country. I'd left my home country, and I thought I could just go from country to country and everything was going to be okay. But I had to reestablish myself. I left all of my friends behind. I left all of my opportunities behind and went to a new country and had to learn it all over again. And I felt like I was starting at the bottom. And what I had not been prepared for was this transition as an expatriate. Now, Batira, what also happened to me, which made it even more depressing for me, was that I had these skills. I'd been a senior flight steward. I was co-leading the team of 17,000 people. I was working towards becoming a purser. And all of a sudden, these skills that I was told were so valuable, that I believed to be so valuable, were not appreciated by other people. And over that 12-month period, I'd applied for more than 600 jobs. And something that I cared about, people did not care about. All the learning, all the education, all the training material that we got from Emirates Airline, people didn't care. They just thought you're a male trolley dolly flying around staying in hotels. But they didn't see it from our perspective. So eventually I went down to the psychiatrist. And she said, you're depressed. Here's some medication. Now, from everything that I knew the medication was not right for me, but I needed a temporary fix. And I took the medication, but I ended up feeling like a zombie. I had no feeling. All the feelings were repressed and I felt numb. It was like Frankenstein walking around. I said, this is not for me. And so what I tried to do, I even tried to apply for my old job back. I tried to apply for my old role back with Emirates. So I went back and they were doing recruitment days. I submitted my CV and I waited 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to try to get my old job back. I was living in the past. I hadn't let go of the past and I kept trying to go back, but I couldn't. Eventually the company said, Daniel, thank you so much for your service. There's no positions available. We wish you all the best in the future. And I missed out on a second opportunity. What made it worse? I thought the law of attraction would work, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine this. I'm here, and I'm going to answer Daniel's question in a moment. I'm here in Taiwan, and I'm thinking, I'm going to make the law of attraction work. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my old job back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to visualize. So I put photos back up on the wall of where I was going to live. I had photos of Ninny and I living back in Dubai. I imagined the uniform. Now, the shoes used to hurt my feet, so I used to go down to the shopping centre here and try on these shoes that looked almost the same as the Emirates cabin crew shoes. And I'd visualize getting these shoes. And I thought, if I use visualization and if I emotionalize this, I'm going to get the job back. All the visualization, all the emotionalization, I just felt let down. And so for me, everything that I thought was going to work didn't work again. I was disappointed all over again. But instead of moving forward, I kept trying to move backwards. I think you can see the pattern here, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel, great question. Why did your career come to an end? Well, Daniel, I met a lovely young woman who's now my wife, and she was also cabin crew. And Ninny and I had just come together about 2009. We met each other and we started our relationship. And about 6 months into our relationship, Ninny was on a flight and she had done a flight from Dubai and she had flown to the UK. Now, on the way home from the UK, she was on the aircraft and the aircraft was coming in to Dubai for landing. And so they were packing up the blankets, they were collecting the headsets. And as she walked through the galley, somebody had spilt water on the galley floor. And unfortunately, she slipped over on the galley floor and she fractured her kneecap. She fell down on her knee and she fractured her knee in 5 places. And it was a very, very painful experience. And here's the photo. There she is. This was Ninny after her accident. Look, you can see that she's still in her crew uniform. For the Emirates crew, you know the little red slip on the dress, you know the red bands around the arms, and there's Ninny. So, Daniel, what happened was she was out working, she was doing what she loved, and she was just coming home from the UK after another flight. She'd collected the blankets, she was collecting the headsets, and then she slipped over on some water. She slipped over on the water and fell right down on her knee, and her knee exploded. Literally exploded into 5 pieces. And she was in incredible pain. She was crying. There was no crew around. They were out in the cabin. And one of the customers, he heard what happened, come and picked her up. Now, eventually, by the time they landed, the knee had swollen up. Peer support had called me, told me what had happened, and I met her at the hospital. They sent her straight in for x-rays, and the kneecap had exploded and broke into 5 places. So this is where the drama started, Daniel. She's had this big accident. We then go back to another, a day or so later, we go back to a surgeon to see what's happening, because you got to be aware, you don't want these bits of bone floating around, getting in the bloodstream, clogging up arteries. You just don't know what's happening. So we went to the specialist, and the specialist said, look, this damage to the knee is really, really bad. Based on the x-rays that we've done, we're going to have to remove the kneecap. We're going to have to remove her kneecap. So you can imagine the trauma that Ninny was in. Here's my beautiful leg, and you want to take my kneecap out. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking, what does a knee look like without a kneecap? It's going to look like a bloody sausage. And I said to the surgeon, I said, look, it's going to look like a really weird leg if she has no kneecap. Is it going to function properly? And he said, Daniel, we can try to save the kneecap, or we can remove it, and then eventually later on, we might put in a prosthetic kneecap. And I said, well, this is my fiance, really important. I would prefer if you try to save the kneecap. And the surgeon did his best. He did a surgery, it was a very long surgery, and he put back the knee, and it looked like a pizza. It looked like it had been chopped up like a pizza, this kneecap. And there was pins in here, and there was pins in there, and there was wire going through. And for 6 months, she had that wire in her knee. She had to go through rehabilitation. And every time that she used her knee, every time her knee bent, every time she walked, those wires and those pins would pull on the meat, on the tissue, on the inside of her knee. And her knee would just constantly swell up. And so for that 6 months, she just had to go through the pain of having this wire and these pins in her knee. Now, the company took very good care of her. They sent her to the best doctors. They sent her to the best physios, the best surgeons. They flew her around the world trying to find a solution. But the pain was so great. So what happened for me, Daniel, was we've been together for 6 months. For the next 2.5 years, I've been nursing her back to health. I'm managing my career. I'm trying to grow my reputation in the company. Also trying to manage and help my fiance at that time. And it just went from bad to worse. So the knee would get inflamed. Eventually she needed another surgery. Once they took her in for second surgery, they flew her over to the United Kingdom. She stayed in a hotel. Company was very good to her, took care of her, 5-star accommodation. They cut open the knee, they took the wires out, but then she had to go through all the rehabilitation again, learning how to walk again, learning how to get muscle control all over again. But that wasn't the end of it. That was just the start of it. A third operation had to take place. So for 2.5 years, Ninny was just in and out of surgery, rehabilitation, 1 knee reconstruction, 2 knee reconstructions, 3 knee reconstructions. And this just went on and on. And so for her physical health, it had a huge impact. But also for the emotional health, it was a big impact. But the other thing is, Ninny, her career throughout her life was only cabin crew. She flew for China Airlines, and that was her first job. Her second job was working for Air Macau. This was her dream job from a little girl, always wanted to be cabin crew. This was her dream. Her third job was with Emirates Airline, one of the best airlines in the world. And then on one flight, slipping on a little bit of water, she falls down and breaks the knee in 5 places. And in that one moment, her life changes forever. And the amount of disappointment, knowing that there might be a chance that you might not walk properly again. You might never be able to do this same job ever again. And so there was a lot of disappointment. And Daniel, that's what happened. So by the end of Ninny's experience with Emirates Airlines, she was about 3 months pregnant. And the company came and said to her, "We're so sorry. We've done everything we can. We can't support you any longer. We're going to have to terminate your contract and you're going to have to return home to Taiwan." Now, at that stage, ladies, you'll understand this. She's 3 months pregnant. The stress, your dream has just disappeared. Your life, you lose your job. You got to leave the country. If anybody's lived in Dubai, you know this. You got to leave the country. But she's 3 months pregnant. The stress, all of a sudden, Ninny started to bleed. She's 3 months pregnant. And we come close to losing our daughter 3 times in that early stage of the pregnancy because of the stress. The disappointment almost led her to losing our first child. And so it didn't get any better from there. It got worse. Then Ninny had to leave Dubai and she went back to Taiwan and she had to then prepare for the birth. And she was there with her family, but without her husband. And so coming towards the end of my career, Daniel, what happened was I now had to make a choice. The company was very good to me and they gave me all the time off that I needed to support Ninny in the UK. I stayed in the hotel for a month while she was there and I nursed her back to health. Company was very good. But at the end of the day, they said, "Daniel, you've got no more holidays left. We can't support you anymore. You're going to have to make a choice." And here's the choice. You can either stay here and work and enjoy your career and bid for days off, and hopefully you'll get days off, but we can't guarantee you days off to see the birth of your daughter. We can't guarantee that you're going to be there for the birth of your daughter. We can't give you any more leniency. We can't give you any more priorities. Now, I respected that. And so I said to Ninny, I said, "What do I do, sweetheart? Do I leave a job that I love so much, that I've worked so hard for, that it's my dream job? And do I stay here and do this and miss out on the birth of our daughter? Or do I leave the job and come home to Taiwan?" And she said, "Husband," she said, "you've got to do what makes you happy." She said, "If you stay in Dubai and you miss out on the birth of Nikita, I will not be upset. This is your dream job. You stay." And so I was in a very tough position there, Daniel. I had to make a choice. I had to make a decision. Do I choose family or do I choose career? If I chose family, I was going to be there for the birth of my daughter, but I'd also lose my career and I'd have to start all over again. And so what I decided to do, Daniel, was I decided to choose family over my career. And it was bittersweet. Like Ninny says, it's bittersweet. It was sweet that I was there for the birth of my daughter, but it was bitter because I lost everything else. And in that one decision, what happened was I had to reinvent myself. And I thought it was going to be easy to reinvent myself, but it was incredibly hard and I wasn't prepared. So I went through that series of disappointments and I started my own business. And I started my business and I did everything that I thought I could do. I took all of the money out of my savings account and I spent all of my money building my business, and it didn't work. And so that was in 2013. By the end of 2013, the disappointment became worse. Now, this is not my sob story. This is just my story. By the end of 2013, we couldn't afford to stay in Taiwan any longer, so we had to come to Australia. And I knew if I came to Australia, I could get Centrelink and I could get some government support till I could get back on my feet. So we did the walk of shame at the time. It was very shameful. It's not a shame to ask for help, but it was very shameful because of what I was aiming for. So I went out there. And I went down to Centrelink and we sat down and we filled out the forms and we got the government assistance. And the government supported us. And within a couple of months, I got myself back up on my feet and I got my business rocking and rolling in Australia. So that's been happening. But we got there, we built our business. In the first 100 days, we made a lot of money. And then July, August came around in 2014 and something happened in the marketplace. I don't know what happened in the marketplace. And all of a sudden, all sales stopped. I just brought on 3 team members. I'd hired an office. I invested in all of this technology. And within 3 months, our business collapsed. We sold our TV. We sold our furniture. I sold my computer equipment. I sold my surfboard, everything that I could do. I sold my car just to get enough money to get flights back to Taiwan where we could go and stay with Nini's grandmother and live in her house because we couldn't afford to live in Sydney anymore. So life is going to be a series of disappointments. There's going to be a lot of disappointments in your life, and it's a fact of life. But we have to be able to manage these disappointments effectively. The disappointments continued. When I came back to Taiwan, my business was not where I wanted it to be. I had a handful of very nice clients who were very supportive and they believed in what I did. Those people are still with me today. And what I had to do, I had to come back and I had to reinvent myself again. So we can see after every disappointment, you got to learn from it and you have to reinvent yourself. So as part of my reinvention, I said to myself, I got to do something different. And I came back here and I had to become an English teacher. And I worked at what's called a bushy barn. And it was very embarrassing because I had to go and do something that I wasn't very skilled at. Now, if you know a little bit about me, when I grew up, I had a lot of learning disabilities. I found it very hard to learn maths. I found it very hard to learn English. And here I am teaching 7, 8, and 9-year-olds English. They hired me because they thought because I was white and because I spoke English, I'd be a good English teacher. But my English is terrible. So I went and taught English and I probably made $20 an hour, but it was enough money to put food on the table and to pay our way. And it was very embarrassing because I was doing something that I was terrible at. But what I did do is I brought all of my world experience into the classroom. And I'll tell you what, the kids loved me more than any other teacher, and I made English the funnest subject. And I think I probably learned more about English than they did. I learned how to spell better. I learned about grammar because I had to go back and study English. And it was disappointing, but it got me to the next level. And I got myself up and picked myself back up. And then the ball started to roll. 2015 came around, had some great business success. 2016 came around, great business success. In 2016, I was recognized as the Rookie Business Coach of the Year. My business became so powerful and strong, I'd acquired 500 new clients in that year alone. And then since then, we've worked with more than 7,250 customers around the world. We've helped more than 7,250 business people achieve their dreams and goals. But it was a series of disappointments, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. And so what I've learned is that after every experience, you've got to ask yourself 2 questions. What did I learn from this? And the learning is what's important. But what I learned at a younger age, after a disappointment, I'd quickly move on to the next thing without reflecting. And I once heard a saying that says, a life unobserved is a life not worth living. And you've got to learn to stop after every disappointment and ask yourself 2 questions. What did I learn from this? And see, it's the learning that helps you move forward. But because in the past I was moving so fast, I didn't stop and think about what I'd learned. So you got to ask yourself, what did you learn from this experience? And then the second question you ask yourself is, what am I going to do differently next time? First question is, what did I learn from this experience? And the second question is, what am I going to do differently next time? And when you ask yourself these questions, you quickly learn and you quickly reprogram your mind on how to deal with these situations when they come up in the future. Because life has a tendency to repeat itself. And if you don't learn what you need to learn from an event, what happens is life repeats itself and it keeps repeating itself until you get the lessons learned. If you don't learn, you just keep looping around having the same problems, the same disappointments. So, to avoid getting into that loop, what I've learned to do is ask myself two questions: what did I do right? And what will I do differently next time? And once I do that, I'm able to move on from disappointment very, very quickly. So, disappointment, like I said at the start, 273 million searches are done on Google. Daniel, great to see you there. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. 273 million searches on Google. Business owners feel disappointment in many different areas. They feel disappointment when they hire people and people leave. They feel disappointment because of opportunities missed. They feel disappointment about hopes and dreams not realized. But this is all part of the journey. And you got to learn to pick yourself up quickly. You got to learn to externalize these. You got to learn to ask for help because there's people out there who are going through the same challenges that you're going through. And if you ask them for help, they'll actually tell you exactly what they did to overcome that problem. And once you go through these experiences, two questions: what did I do right? And what will I do differently next time? Ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to see you here today. It's nice to be able to spend time with you, sharing our life story and how we've overcome problems. And if there's a challenge in your life and you feel stuck, there's an obstacle and you don't feel that you can get past it, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to reach out to me personally. Nini and I have a wealth of knowledge. We have worldly experience and we can point you in the right direction. All you've got to do is reach out to us, say hello, tell us where you're stuck, and we'll share what got us through some very troublesome times. Batira, great to see you there. Well done. We might find many rocks on the way. Trip and fall, but stand up and keep going. Absolutely. Su Ling, thank you for sharing your story. So it's always a pleasure and many more to share. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're doing well. If you're ever stuck, make sure you reach out to myself or Nini, and we're always here to help you. So wherever you are today, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Ciao for now.
I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la la.